In this video, I'll show you exactly how to 3D model using Blender. Now, Blender can feel really overwhelming at first, but the goal for this video is to make it as easy for you as possible. So let's go ahead and start with the basics. To move around in the viewport here, simply click on the middle mouse button to rotate around. And I highly suggest using a 3-button mouse while using Blender. It's really hard to try to use Blender with a trackpad. So what are these objects in our scene here? If we click and drag, we can select all of them, and you can see the objects are listed here. So here we have a camera, we have a cube, and we have a light. To move an object, simply select on the object, and you can use the move tool over here. We can simply just move it and drag it around like so. We could also rotate the object, and we can scale the object as well. So when you're designing things, you don't really need the camera or the light. I'm going to go back to the selection tool. So we go ahead and delete the camera and the light. So all you have to do is right click and select delete. Select the light as well, right click and delete. And now the only object we have in our scene is this cube. But where is the cube exactly? Well, if you press N on the keyboard, and for Nancy, we can see all of the object properties. We have the location, the rotation, the scale, and the dimensions of the object. So right now it's important to note that my dimensions are in millimeters because I've set up the units already. So if you're designing something for, let's say, 3D printing, you'll want to set up the units. So to do that, all you have to do is select on this scene properties button right here, so right here, and then you select metric, set the unit scale to 0.001, and set the length to millimeters. And the reason I chose millimeters is because a lot of times you're 3D modeling for 3D printing, and 3D printers are typically in millimeters. So now once you set all of these things here, your grid will kind of get messed up. So we'll have to go up here to the viewport overlays, and we can set the scale of the grid. Set it to 0.001, and then you should have a perfect looking grid, and your dimensions should be in millimeters. So let's go ahead and change the location of our object. Let's set it back to the origin point, 0, 0, 0. Now let's say we wanted to design some sort of bracket, some sort of custom bracket. Well, what we could do is we could go ahead and set the dimensions of the bracket. So let's say we know our bracket needs to be maybe 100 millimeters wide, and maybe it's 12 millimeters deep, and it's pretty thin, maybe 3 millimeters thick. And now we have the basic plate for the bracket. So for this bracket, let's say we want to add some holes to it. Well, what we could do is we can create cylinders and use those cylinders to cut some holes. So to add a new object, go up here to add, go to mesh, and you can go to cylinder. But before you click anything after you select cylinder, so if you select cylinder, before you click, down here on the bottom left, you'll see add cylinder. And you could open up this panel here, and we could increase the resolution to make it less like a low poly, because right now 32 vertices, if you print it, you'll kind of see the polygons. So let's increase it to 256, and that'll be a really high resolution cylinder. Go ahead and press enter and click anywhere on the screen. And now we have our cube, which let's go ahead and rename it to bracket. Just double click and we can rename it to bracket. And cylinder, maybe we'll just call it a hole cutter. And it doesn't really matter what it's called. But right now our hole cutter is 2 by 2 by 2. And let's say for our bracket we want to make it so we can put some 5 millimeter bolts into it. Well, we could set this dimension here to 5.6, 5.6, and let's just set this to 10. Now you may be wondering, why am I adding the extra 0.6 millimeters? And that's so the bolt could easily slide into the hole. If it was exactly 5 millimeters, then it would kind of be really snug, and it wouldn't just easily be able to go into the hole. So now we have one cylinder, and the reason I made it 10 millimeters tall is because when you cut an object out of another object, you want to make sure the object is bigger than it. So for example, if I just made it 3 millimeters, you'll see these two faces are overlapping, and if I move the screen around, you'll see it's kind of glitching out, and we don't want that at all. So make sure, set it to something bigger. In this case, I'll just do 10. Okay, so now how do we cut a hole out of this object? And actually, how many holes do we want first off? Let's say we just want 3 holes, kind of evenly spaced. Well, we'll need to duplicate the hole cutter 3 times, and it's just a cylinder, I'm just calling it the hole cutter. Just right click on it and go to duplicate object, and then I'll just press escape so that way it doesn't change the position of it. Duplicate objects in, and let's say I accidentally click right here and it's not where I want it to be. Well, we can just easily change the location just by typing in 000, and now we can set the location where we want it to be along this bracket. So let's go ahead and set it to maybe 42, so it's kind of near the edge, or I can even do maybe 45, closer to the edge. We can select on another cylinder, and let's do negative 45. Okay, so now we have 3 cylinders that we could use to cut a hole in this object. Now we could cut each hole individually, or we could use a little shortcut here. If we hold shift and select on all of these objects here, you can right click and just select join. And now they're all just one object. So you can see the hole cutter, it's just one object here. We have our bracket and our hole cutter. And now also I wanted to mention, I forget if I mentioned how to pan on the screen here. If you hold shift on your keyboard and the middle mouse button, you could pan side to side, up and down. And the middle mouse button alone is just to rotate. And there's also the shortcuts up here. You could pan by holding this button here. Yeah, so I forget if I mentioned that, but that's an important thing to note. So you could practice kind of moving around the scene like so. Okay, back to the hole cutting here. So let's select on our bracket, and to cut holes into it, we'll have to use what's called a Boolean modifier. So we go over here down to the modifier tool, or the modifiers, Blender modifiers, and we could add a modifier, and we could add a Boolean modifier. Now what a Boolean modifier is it allows you to join objects and cut objects from each other. And it's pretty standard for applications that use meshes, and we're designing things, these are meshes. So all you have to do now is select the object, select hole cutter, and make sure it's set to difference. That's the subtract, so it'll subtract the cylinders from the bracket. And go ahead and select this drop down and click apply. So once we do that, it may look like nothing happened, but you'll notice that we can kind of see a hole there. If you rotate around, you'll see some kind of yellow circles. So if we select on our hole cutters, right click and go to delete, you'll notice we have 3 holes cut into our bracket. But now, right now, it's not really much of a bracket, it's kind of a plate. How do we actually edit this object? Right now, we've just kind of used other objects to cut it, and we kind of changed the shape in kind of a really basic way. So in Blender, there are 2 different modes that you could be in. If you go to the top left, you can see which mode you're in right now. And right now we're in object mode, and there's also edit mode. So these are really important, and you'll, when you're designing things, you'll be jumping in between object mode and edit mode all the time. So I'll emphasize it again, object mode and edit mode, very important. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into edit mode. So now, let me explain how edit mode works. Basically, right now we can select on vertices. So you can see these little dots here if I zoom in. And you'll notice we have a lot of dots because we made that cylinder have 256 vertices. So you can see it's really high resolution if we zoom in. So up here we can see there are the vertex selection mode, there's a edge selection mode, and there's a face selection mode. So vertex selection, we can select on all these points, like so. You can select multiple points. You can hold shift and select multiple points. Edge selection kind of makes sense. You select on edges like this. You can select a bunch of edges. And face selection mode, you can select faces. So that's all pretty straightforward. Now you may notice that some vertices, let's go back to the vertex selection mode, some are hidden. And in order to see, like let's say I want to select all of these here, it may look like all of them are selected, but they're actually not. If we click on this button up here on the top right, I'll go to it again so you can see this one right here. This is the X-ray mode. And now we can see through our object and select all of the vertices. So why would we want to do this in the first place? I'm going to turn this off. Well, now we can actually edit the mesh of our object. And there's some really convenient tools here as well. So right now, for example, let's just say, actually I'm going to turn X-ray mode back on. Let's just say we select, I'm going to go to the top view. So if we go up here, click the Z button here. If we want to resize one of these holes, we can select all of them like so. Make sure you're in X-ray mode. You can see we select all of those vertices. Go back up to the top by clicking on there. And now we could use the scale tool. Where was that? Right here. And we could scale our hole. And if you notice, if you get too big, it kind of breaks. But we could change the hole if we needed to. So I guess that will, it brings up a point of how do we know how big the hole is now? And this can be a little confusing at first. And Blender, unfortunately, doesn't have a great way of measuring distances. So the best way that I've found is you could go and add an add-on that'll allow you to measure distances. So like, let's say we wanted to know how big is this hole. You can select this point and this point. Let's just go back to the selection mode here. And right now, there's no way to really tell how far apart those are. Well, we could go up to Edit, and we go to Preferences. Okay, and then just pulls over here in the middle. And we could go to the add-ons right here, and let's go to, it's already built into Blender. Type in Measure, and you'll see it says 3D View, Measure It. So go ahead and check that. And then go ahead and click these 3 lines here and save Preferences. So now, we have our Measure It add-on. We could go into the properties here. So press N to open up the object properties, and we'll go to View. And down here, you can find the Measure It tools, and it is kind of hidden. And like I said, this video is gonna be packed full of info, so hope it's not too much here for you, but this is really important stuff to know. So now, if we wanna measure this here, let's select this point. And let's select this point, and we'll make sure they're the top 2 points here. And now let's find the distance between those points. Well, we could add a segment. So now we've added the segment, and we can click Show. So now we have our measurement. And right now, unfortunately, it is in meters. So we could go ahead and, I believe the configuration is here. There's a spot here. Let's see, the scale, no, right here, units, there it is. Set it to millimeters. So now we can see our distance here is 5.6. So if we go back to the top view and we select all of these here, when we scale it, you can see how big your hole is. So let's say we want it to be 7 millimeters, you just simply scale it to 7 millimeters. Okay, so now you know how to measure distances. We could also, let's say we want to measure how long our object is. I'll turn off X-ray mode. We could go into the edge selection mode here on the top left, the edge selection mode, and we can select on an edge and simply add another segment. And we can see that it's 100 millimeters long. So now let's go ahead and finish our bracket. And just making sure everything looks good. Yeah, so it's looking good. Now let's go ahead and finish our bracket. And a bracket usually kind of is like a L shape. We could use some really convenient tools over here. Some of the most important tools are Extrude. We have Inset, Bevel, and the Knife tool. Let's go ahead and just use Bevel, or not Bevel, let's go ahead and use the Extrude tool. It's probably the most common tool. So first we'll go into face selection mode. And let's go ahead and select the face first, and then let's go to Extrude. So now, you could either pull out this object manually, or what I find to be easier and much quicker is instead of actually using the Extrude tool, we could use the keyboard shortcut, which is E for Extrude. So I'm just gonna go back to the normal selection mode. We don't need to worry about this button here. You could manually pull it out if you don't care about the dimension, but if you want really accurate dimensions, I recommend using the keyboard shortcut. So just simply select on the face here, press E for Extrude. Okay, and then it's going to, basically, now you need to type in the distance. So let's say we want it to be 4 millimeters. And Siri just turned on here. Come on, Siri, turn off. Okay, let's say we want it to be 4 millimeters. We could type in 4, and now we have this piece here. That's 4 millimeters extruded outward. And now let's say we want to finish our bracket and select this top face here and kind of pull it up. And let's say we want to pull it up, let's say 10 millimeters. So we could press E for extrude and then type in 10. And now we have our bracket. And if you want to confirm the distance of everything, let's go and add a measurement. So we'll go back into the vertex selection mode. We can select on this vertice, and let's select this one here, hold shift to select 2 of them. And let's go ahead and add another segment. And now you can see it's 13 millimeters because we have 3 millimeters plus the 10 millimeters that we added. And now we have a very nice looking bracket. And it wasn't too bad to design at all. And you could always go ahead and select individual vertices and use these tools to move everything like so. However, if you start moving things like this, it could get messed up very easily. Okay, so that's how you can design some sort of functional 3D model using Blender. But what if you wanted to make a more organic model? Well, there are a few ways that we can do this. So let's go ahead and go back to File, and I'll create a new project here. And I'll click Don't Save. I'll delete this camera here, delete this light. And let's say we want to make a more organic object. How could we do this? Well, we could start with our default cube here. And I'm gonna scale it up here, like so. And right now, if we go into edit mode, you'll see there's only like very few vertices. So I'm gonna introduce you to a thing called sculpting. And basically it works exactly like how sculpting works in real life, except we'll be sculpting inside of the computer. So we'll need a lot more vertices though in order to sculpt our object. So let's go back into object mode. And we'll need to add what's called a subdivision surface modifier. So we'll go over here to the modifiers, the blue wrench, and we'll go to subdivision surface. And now you'll see it automatically changes the shape. And let's go ahead and type in, or not type, we'll just click with the arrow here. And let's go to 6. And that'll be very high resolution. And you go ahead and click apply. So yep, that's looking good. Now we can go up here to this tab that is called sculpting, and we could sculpt our object. So here are all of the tools that you could use. I just recommend going through and trying them out, but the most common ones are the clay strips tool, where you can kind of just, add clay strips digitally. Also there's the smooth tool right here, where you can smooth out the object, and you can change the size of the tool here and also the strength. So I'll go ahead and change the radius. And now we go ahead and smooth out our object. And then also we have the grab tool right here. So right here, we can basically click on our object and kind of pull it out like this. So if you want to make some sort of, it's kind of looking like a cat already, you could do that. And just kind of manually shape it. And the last thing that's a really good thing to know is what's called masking. Now this gets a little bit more complicated here. Let's see. For some reason I lost the mask tool. Here it is. The mask tool is here. Now what we could do is I'm going to change the radius lower. And then I'm going to simply, like let's say I'm trying to create some eyes. I can kind of draw out the shape, and maybe I'll make it a little bit less. Do that. Maybe make the hardness even higher. Or let's see. Yeah, that's fine. And then let's say we want the. Maybe it's gonna look kind of bad, but this is a scared cat. Okay, so now we have our mask. Let's see here. Okay, and now what we could do is, I believe we're going to press Control I, Control I or Command I on the Mac, and now we've inverted our mask. And now if we take, let's just say something that is a negative sculpting tool here. Well, let's just do, oops, let me scroll up here. Let's do the clay strips. But to make it negative, you're going to press Control. And then you could indent like so. So now it's indenting, and we have it basically based off of the mask. And we do the same thing for the eyes. Let's see if clay strips is the best idea here. Yeah, that looks good. You kind of just rotate around like so. Make the eye sockets for it. And you may notice it looks kind of low poly. Well, what we could do now is we could go to what's called a remesh, the remesh tool. And actually, let's do the keyboard shortcuts because it's a little bit easier. Press Shift R on your keyboard, and you'll notice this grid pops up. That is the voxel size, and it sounds fancy, but it's basically the resolution. You may go right about till the grid starts disappearing. And so click to confirm it. So now we've changed the resolution of the remesh. Now we actually have to remesh, and to do that, press Control R, and it will load, and then remesh the object. So now we can go back into it with our smooth tool, decrease the strength, and we can kind of smooth everything out. And if it lags a lot, it's because our model is really high resolution. And to change the resolution, you can go back into the remesh tool and kind of change it. But right now I'm just gonna kind of smooth everything out here so it's not so harsh looking. Like this, just taking my smooth tool and smoothing everything out. And just knowing those few tips alone, you could already start sculpting a lot of things. The mask tool is really powerful. Highly recommend using that to get those details. And that's a basic introduction into sculpting. Okay, so now we've kind of gone over basically hard surface modeling, which is not really hard surface modeling for the first practical object, the bracket. And we've gone into sculpting and made kind of a scary looking cat guy. Let me show you some tips and tricks as well. And there are a lot of things that you could do in Blender. So you could feel free to explore those two areas first. It's already a lot of stuff. But let's go into some tips and tricks as well. There's a really cool object. Let's see, we could go to what's called a meta ball, not meatball. And we could create a ball like so. And if we right click and if we go to duplicate object, you'll notice it kind of does this really cool like blob type effect. And you can just keep doing that and you could create some interesting looking objects. And you could use like the scale tool and we could scale it. But it's kind of a really easy way to kind of block out or prototype shapes. And you can see how it just kind of melds together like that. Kind of really interesting. But feel free to explore that. Once again, that is the meta ball right here. Okay. And let me just go, oops, zoom back in. Okay, so here's some, so you may notice that it was a little difficult to navigate around. Here are some settings that you could use to improve user experience. Go to Edit, go to Preferences, okay, and go to Navigation and set Auto Perspective and Depth first off. And then we want to do Orbit Around Selection. So make sure these 3 checkboxes are selected. And that's about it. You could also change this setting here for Emulate Numpad. So if you have a keyboard that doesn't have the extra numbers on the right side, you could click Emulate Numpad. That way, you could use some keyboard shortcuts for the view. For instance, 1. Let's see. Select on our object here. Let me go back to it. You could press 1 to go to the front view. You could press 7 to go to the top view. And you could just kind of experiment around and press all the num keys to see what type of, to see the angle it goes at. Okay, so now let's say we want to, let's go back to the Boolean modifier here. You can press A, so there's another shortcut. Press A to select everything, and then X to delete. Okay, so now let's say let's create a cube here. Let's scale it up. And let's go ahead and create another cube. Duplicate it. Let's say we wanted to join these 2 objects together. And right now it may look like they're joined together, but they're actually not. If we go into edit mode, and well, first off, we can only edit one of the objects. And we turn on X-ray mode, you'll see we have this point inside of it. That's not at all what we want. We want them to be just one mesh. which kind of opens an entire can of worms into meshes and how they could be broken and how they could be fixed. So let's go ahead and go back to object mode. Let's just combine these together, turn off X-ray mode, and let's go ahead and go to select our object here, add modifier, Boolean, and this time we'll select union. That way we could join two objects together. And go ahead and just select the other cube, and now you'll notice it kind of looks like it's glitching. That's okay. Go ahead and click this drop down and then click apply. Now we can select on this cube here, press X or right click and delete. And now we have, let's go ahead and select this object. If we go into edit mode and then turn on X-ray mode here, you'll notice now our objects are combined together perfectly, and that's how we want them to look. So now let's go ahead and jump into the can of worms of all the issues that you could have with meshes, and unfortunately meshes are really easy to break. So let's say we select on this vertex here and we delete it. Now we have a broken mesh. How can we actually fix this? Well, what we could do is we could select on this vertex, right click, and you should be able to, well, we could extrude it. We could extrude it out like so. So now we have this vertex. So what we could do is we could select on this vertex, this vertex, this vertex, and this vertex, and press F to fill. So now we've added that face back, and we can select all of these vertices as well. Hold shift to select multiples, press F to fill, and we can go over here, select this, 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 and this, and press F to fill as well. So now our mesh looks like it's correct. I'll go ahead and move this. You can just go to the move tool. I used G, grab, the shortcut, keyboard shortcut is G for grab. It's to move. You'd think it'd be M, but it's not, it's G. Okay, so now we have our two objects and we think it's fixed, but we need to check to make sure the normals are correct. So basically sometimes there's a thing called normals. It's which way this face is which direction this face is facing. It could be flipped and that messes things up. So let me show you how to check the normals. So basically select everything by pressing A, go to here, and go down to normals, and then click this button here, and increase the size. Now you know it's good when all of the blue lines are pointing outward. And we go back into X-ray mode. If there are ever blue lines pointing inside your object, that is bad and it means something is broken. And fortunately for us, nothing is broken here, but if it is broken, just go to press A to select everything, go to mesh and go to normals and click recalculate outside. And if that doesn't work, go to mesh and go to cleanup and go to merge by distance. And you can see it says 0 vertices removed, which means everything was perfect. So there's some tips that could hopefully help you if anything breaks. Now I think that should give you a lot to go with for Blender. There's just a ton of other things I could teach you, but this video is already almost 30 minutes long, so I'm going to leave it at that. And if you have any questions, go ahead and leave it in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer all of your questions. So I hope that helps. Blender is a massive program and it's really powerful, but it's really an amazing program. So once again, if you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll try my best to answer every single one of your questions. Best of luck on your 3D modeling journey,